Welcome everyone to the Arseholics podcast on Sunday night. Maybe a more deflated podcast than you're used to this season. My word, I certainly feel incredibly deflated. We've just played West Ham at West Ham, and for the second week in a row, we've gone 2-0 up and thrown it away. 2-2 it finished. To really get through this therapy with me, I've got my two I was going to say kind of brothers in pain today, Aaron and Mize. And Mize was one of the lucky ones who's been able to actually be at the game today. He was physically there in the away end, so he can give us up his perspectives from that. Because obviously, there are things that looked very good at the beginning on TV and things that looked very bad for about 60 minutes. It'd be great to hear, Mize, what your thoughts were on that. But guys, both of you, how do you feel post 2 points dropped?
Well, look at that. I'll go first, I guess. I think my main conclusion is I'm hoping this is a one-off. I see people, and I know you're going to say it's not one-off because it literally happened last week.
But you don't need a host. Yeah. Just do it yourself.
But as in, I think to be fair, a lot of people last week brushed last week off because it was Anfield, because of all that. And I was actually quite annoyed. And because of what happened, because of, when you go 2-0 up in a game, regardless of where it is, I think you should do better.
Yeah, you were very annoyed. I remember that you said I thought of you towards the end of the game because you were like, if this happens again, I don't want to hear any of this. It was Anfield. It was nonsense.
Yeah, it was
none of that.
It was it was the Olympic Stadium. We can't do it. Yeah. So, but I think these things happen. These episodes in a season happen, and it hasn't really happened. We haven't had a banter moment this season yet. I'm kind of hoping that this is it. It's done. Let's just move on. That's my reaction 5-6 hours after the game. Obviously, during the game, I was like, you absolute idiots. What are you doing? But if we can isolate this and move on, we're still in a title race. We're in a great position. And regardless of where we finish, because I've said all along, I didn't think we'd win it. But regardless of where we finish, I just want us to have a proper go. I want City to have to work hard to win it. And I don't want us to just hand it to them with a bit of a whimper. So I'm hoping this is a one-off issue. I'm hoping we can look past it. But look, the way we played today was not good. Especially, I just felt like we got complacent. We went 2-0 up. We did the hard work. Then we took our foot off the pedal and we let a team back in, and then we were just shocked. I think that we lost this game because of a number of reasons, but I think the narrative and the fear of the narrative really weighed down on us. And we were talking just after the game, Raj, and I think you said it was the first time you can say we lost because of mentality, and I'd probably agree with you.
Yeah, I did. And I said on Twitter, it's the first time this season that I think the players have truly let themselves down. This is the first time. And, hearing you say before about, actually trying to take it in isolation and maybe just take it away as that banter kind of performance. Actually, in fairness, it does make sense. I suppose it's just really hard when it's in the middle of an unexpected title race. But Miles, it'd be great to get your feelings, but maybe we could do it chronologically a little bit, because I'd love to know your perspective on how it was at the ground before kickoff. What was the vibe with the Arsenal fans there post Anfield? It's been a week. How was everyone feeling? And if you could then contrast it with afterwards. I'm not leading the witness there. I'm interested to see if the fans in the stadium were perhaps as disheartened as some of us watching on TV.
I mean, it was as good of an away day in terms of pre-match as you'd expect. I don't think there was any hangover from what happened at Anfield.
But you had a hangover though, didn't you? You personally had a hangover.
Well, I didn't actually have a hangover. I was just extremely tired. Yeah, I was out drinking till very late. But Yeah, very, very late and didn't get much sleep. So yeah, I didn't really have a pre-match kind of no pre-match session this time. Pretty much just got to Stratford and then straight to the ground. And yeah, it was really long to get in. I was messaging you guys. There's like I had to go through 2 compared to the Emirates where you get to the turnstile and a guy just like barely pats you down or runs probably a fake metal detector over you and you get let in. Like there was two checks, one as you're approaching the stadium, and the queue was like 15 minutes for that. Then as we're going into the stadium, another check, which was another 10 minutes. So it just took ages to get in. It was really long. But yeah, so I didn't really like in terms of pre-match and stuff, like I didn't really like absorb it, if you know what I mean. Like it was pretty much got in with about 20 minutes to go and sort of straight we had one quick beer and straight to our seats. So but I mean, look, it was very, as always, the atmosphere, the crowd, well, our fans anyway, were fantastic as always, as they are for away games. But it was very easy. It was very easy when you go 2-0 up. Like everyone was giddy, everyone was loving it, right? All the songs were coming out, and from a West Ham perspective, London Stadium was silent. It was absolutely silent after we went 2-0 up, and
they were booing. I heard they were booing. Like
we didn't hear
TV after 2-0 up. Sounded like that there was a passage of play where they were booing the team.
Wow, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I didn't really hear that, but yeah, we were buoyant, and at 2-0 up, I went to my cousin Jonathan, who's just literally commented, and the comments come up on the screen, but we were talking about like, when we get our 4th and 5th, that's the time to bring on like rest everyone basically after 60 minutes and stuff. Like we were getting that carried away because it just, not a single part of me thought, even after what happened last week, that we would let it slip. Basically, we'd let a 2-goal lead slip. When you're 2-0 up after 10 minutes, you do start. I basically said to John again, we need to get a few more and get the goal difference back.
You probably didn't see this stat as well, so I interrupt you. But in the first, I think it was the first 10 and I think 15 minutes. I think it was 50 in the first 15 minutes. West Ham averaged 2 touches per minute.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
Like they genuinely hardly touched the ball.
Yeah. And that's how it felt. That's how it felt in the ground. We were, everyone was loving it. And it just felt like we just turned up and we were going to do the job that we needed to do, and we just basically almost done it. And it was, but there's always that kind of shadow of you need the third to kill the game. You need the third to kill the game. And I think a third today would have killed the game. And at 3-1, if we obviously scored the penalty, if Saka scores a penalty, that probably kills the game. And we just, just really frustrating because we allowed them back in. And like, I think from just being there was a lot of frustration today. There was probably the same as what you guys experienced. Like there was a lot of, quite surprisingly, actually, a lot of people were pretty resigned after about sort of 80 minutes, because I think it goes to 2-2 and we still had a lot of time to go and win the game. But I think after about, I don't know, like 15, 20 minutes of having a lot of the ball, but not really doing much with it and not really creating anything, and still looking quite vulnerable on the break to West Ham's counter, it felt like, I think a lot of people around us sort of just accepted that it was probably just going to be a draw. Or basically, even despite the fact that we've obviously picked up quite a few late winners this season, I didn't see many people holding out much hope that we were going to do it again. I was pretty hopeful. I thought it was going to come like another last minute winner from God knows where. Obviously it didn't, but I mean, look, I think it was a lot of frustration, disappointment. Obviously, I don't think there was no kind of, what's the word? No bad feeling. I don't think anyone's overreacting. No one was overreacting and sort of saying, well, that's it, it's done in terms of the title. But just a massive feeling of like, you can't, like we said it before the game when we did our preview, you have to win this sort of game, and we put ourselves in such a good position to do it as well. Just really, really, more than anything, I think the overriding feeling was just frustration and disappointment that we just didn't get the third, and like I said, probably kills the game off.
What question for you guys, which bit was worse, like the fact that we let a 2-goal lead slip, or the fact that when, like you said, when we got it back to 2-2, we basically did nothing for what seemed like about 25 minutes, which is the more concerning part.
It's a really good question. I was getting ready to say letting a 2-goal lead slip, but then when I thought about the second option, I think they're both really terrible things. Actually, I mean, I suppose to give an answer, I'd probably say letting 2 goals slip because it's the second time it's happened in a week, and this was to a really bad team. Again, I know I sort of mentioned it, but their own fans are booing them. They're 2-0 down at home. Their fans are booing them. It's bad. It's toxic. You know, they didn't look like they had a clue what to do. So I know Liverpool arguably didn't look like they had a clue when we went 2-0 up against them, but it's Liverpool, it's Anfield, and they actually are fundamentally a team with good DNA, right? Like
Liverpool was also in 86th minute, right? So it wasn't like
exactly.
Well,
exactly. But even them coming back into the game, they've got quality players, and yes, you could argue that West Ham's league position is artificial in some ways, but I think, man, like being 2-0 up, and like Mai said, in a position where from the week before, you probably think if there's one thing we wouldn't be, it would have been complacent at 2-0 up. It's so fresh. It's fresh losing a 2-0 lead, right? So you thought that they would just go for it, but there's no excuse this time in that respect, because there was not an incident that Xhaka did that we can all point to that and say he got the crowd riled up and blah blah blah. None of that happened. It was just a really
penalty, wasn't it?
thing.
It was just a penalty.
But it was interesting, isn't it? Because Gabriel, I don't know if you saw Miles, but Gabriel Jesus said it in his interview post match, and they sort of said, "Oh, the penalty sort of change everything?" And he basically said it was actually like 5-10 minutes before that we started playing badly. So he said it wasn't like the penalty 5-10 minutes before that, and he basically just talked about just not doing the basic things that they are. I used a better phrase, but effectively not doing what they are authentically good at doing. They just sort of stopped doing. But I mean, I'd maybe go back to you to answer what's your response to Aaron's question? Do you agree? Is it the letting the 2-goal lead the worst bit, or is it the not getting back into the game?
I think it's hard to pick between the two, to be honest. One of the other most disappointing things, I'm going to add a third option, is just not getting the third goal, which is obviously linked to kind of letting them back in at 2-0, but just not getting the third. And why is that happened? It's 2 games in a row, but especially today when, so we're so much stronger than West Ham, obviously. How are we, we've done so well to get ourselves in that position. And that, for me, is the most frustrating thing, is just go and kill the game. Go and do what City do, basically. Go and get the third and put it out of sight. And then you can start thinking about, making the subs, resting players, whatever, trying to get a couple more to just improve the goal difference. But that is probably the most frustrating thing for me, because I just don't get it. I don't understand when you're on top like that and you're able to tear a team apart the way we did to score the goals that we scored. I know that we didn't create loads of chances today, but the 2 goals we scored, we basically took them apart, right? The play, the interplay, and the kind of the movement, West Ham couldn't cope with it. So
it was world class.
It was 2 quality goals. So if you're able to do that, and then I don't know if it's an Arteta thing where he's that it's coming from the touchline, where he's advising them to almost, I can't imagine it is, but maybe to kind of sit on that lead for a bit and almost like keep it solid. I really don't know, or if it's a player mentality thing where they're like, okay, 2-0, this is good. Let's chill for a bit. I really don't know what the reason is, but that is really disappointing for me, because that they should have learned that from what happened at Anfield, and they should know they would have known today is obviously, like I say, just a much better team than West Ham, and we would have been able to would have been able to finish that game off in the first half quite straightforward. I think it would have been. I don't think West Ham would have come back from 3 goals down. So that's probably the most disappointing thing for me, to be honest.
Aaron, and we talked a lot before kickoff about the lineup, and we talked about Zinchenko being out of the team, which was unexpected. Obviously, that wasn't something that we've had a few days to sort of mull our thoughts over. Just found out kind of before kickoff that he wasn't even going to be in the squad, and then we were talking about whether Tierney coming in, whether that mean the system changes, etc. Now, obviously, look on paper, it's one of the positions where if we get an injury, it's okay. Like, because Kieran Tierney was one of our best players last season. It's really solid left back. I think gets in any Premier League squad, starts for most teams. Good player. So what was your take on how that panned out? Do you think that had an effect on the game and how anything panned out afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say with hindsight, but I did say I was massively worried because if you look at like our players in terms of who are the players that you really need to make this system work, I'd say number one is probably Thomas Partey. I'd say maybe number two is maybe Ramsdale. And then number three, I'd say it's probably Zinchenko. And then it's probably Saliba after that, Saliba and Gabriel after that, because they're so unique in their ability to bring what they bring. And, you know, like you said, you take out one left back and you bring in another left back. Tierney's great, but he can't do what Zinchenko does. It's just, it's basically a different position, different quality. And, you know, he gave it a good go today, but he really, really struggled in some points. I think, you know, he gave the ball away a lot. He struggled to kind of know where to be. You know, he's just not that type of player. He's still a very good player, but he's just not that type of player. And when you lose, you know, him, then you've got Thomas Partey not having a great game. You've got the loss of Saliba. You've got a few other players around him not really playing well. It leaves a lot for like one or two players to do. And then the downside of that is then you then lose control of the game. You lose control of the ability to build out from the back. You lose what makes our system work. And then you've got, you know, our system is basically let the defenders take risks and, you know, expose your defenders somewhat in the knowledge that they can then play out from the back and get the ball high up the pitch. But when they're not doing that, all you've got is expose your defenders. And the defenders that you're exposing then are also like guys like Holding, Tierney, and then Gabriel and Ben White. And I think the system kind of just crumbled a bit in that sense. And then, you know, all West Ham were doing were just going long, deep, and then just hoping that we couldn't deal with those long balls and then put us under pressure in that sense. And we couldn't really figure out how to transition. So, yeah, I think Zinchenko was a big loss. But look, he was there last week. The same kind of psychological mentality breakdown happened last week as well. So it's not just him. I just think with this team, everyone needs to be on it for it to work. And you take one or two players out, we really do struggle quite a bit sometimes.
Miles, I often think when you're there live, defensive organization and defensive confidence is something that I think you can appreciate more when you're there live than you are on TV. And partly I think that's because, you know, when you're watching live, a lot of the time the focus is on where the ball is. But I think when you're in the stadium, sometimes, you know, you pay attention a little bit to how people are structuring defensively, how they are kind of, you know, communicating with one another. I certainly feel that, you know, where we sit in the North Bank, I feel like I can notice that a lot. I'm intrigued to get to know your thoughts on that, but partly what Aaron was sort of talking about in terms of Tierney and how he did, but also this is Rob Holding again in this starting role where against Liverpool, it was quite hard to sort of really say, you know, was it, did we suffer because Holding was there? Because at the end of the day, it was Liverpool. Pretty much everyone sort of seemed to crumble a little bit. What did you feel about from this game when you were watching? Did it seem like Tierney and Holding or any one of them, even individually, caused any kind of disruption to our confidence, our patterns, our kind of, I don't know, like relationships? What did you feel?
I mean, on Tierney, I mean, like, I pretty much agree with everything Aaron has said. He's not a Zinchenko. He can't do what Zinchenko does, and especially on the ball. Zinchenko is fantastic, and we obviously missed that today. But I think he, in terms of playing that midfield role, he did a fairly good job. And I think defensively, he was really good as well. I think there was one breakaway that I haven't seen any of the highlights, by the way, so I've not seen anything.
There was a tackle
back.
on Bowen. I don't know if you're referring to that. It was like
there was a block shot. Yeah. And well, anyway, in general, I thought because Tierney's game is up and down that left-hand side, right? And I think he did that as well as having to try and play that midfield role. So I think he was trying to play his natural game and also trying to adapt to the system. And to be fair to him, I think he had a decent game. But yeah, it doesn't mean that, you know, if once Zinchenko's back, his place is at risk. Zinchenko's still first choice. So I don't necessarily think that was too much of an issue, really. Rob Holding, yeah, I mean, he didn't have the best of games. There were a few really hairy moments. I think there was one in the first half where he gives away a free kick on the edge of the box, but I think he gets done like twice for pace, or I can't remember. I'll be honest, I can't exactly remember it exactly, but like, I don't know. It felt like one of those Rob Holding games where he was just there was like just quite a few dodgy moments. There was another one in the second half when Benrahma, like he does quite well for the first one. I think he wins the ball or gets a block in, and then the ball's going out towards the touchline, and Benrahma just like Benrahma goes shoulder to shoulder, and he just gets like bossed off the ball. And I'm thinking that is, you know, if you're like, of all the things you should not be that should not be happening if you're Rob Holding, that's one of them, right? You should not be losing a duel like that. So and I think it's very obvious. It's a very obvious thing to say, I guess, but you know, Rob Holding in our build-up play, it's just so much slower. And I don't know if you guys saw this or noticed this, or maybe it was just maybe something I was looking out for. But do you guys think that when we had the ball at the back, when Ramsdale had the ball, and obviously we're trying to build out from the back, do you think, like, I think Rob Holding had a lot of touches today, but it also felt like our other defenders and Ramsdale and probably Partey as well weren't that confident in giving him the ball. And I think it felt quite apparent today compared to previously when he's been in the team. I don't know if you guys noticed that or if that's just me, but
I kind of agree. I think it's more than just not giving him the ball, or like, I think they compensate and they have to adapt to Rob Holding being on the pitch. And like the bit I was going to point out was, they didn't really point this out in the highlights or on the commentary, but during the build up to the West Ham penalty, there's a moment where I think Antonio gets in behind on Rob Holding's side. And what actually happens is Gabriel goes over and deals with Antonio brilliantly. But then he's then on playing right centre back and Rob Holding's left centre back. And I was going to say, actually, that's pretty cool that they can just swap positions like that. And actually, Gabriel can just go to where Antonio is. But then literally 5 seconds later, that ball's put back in because Partey loses it. And Declan Rice, I think, puts the ball in. And then Gabriel's the one. They're in the wrong side. So Gabriel's on the left. Well, Gabriel's playing right centre back effectively, and Rob Holding's playing left. And it's that kind of stuff, right? If that was Saliba, I don't think Gabriel's going over there to deal with Antonio. He's probably just saying, like, Saliba, you deal with this. And just generally, I think when Holding's in the side, I think we play quite deep as well. We play a lot deeper. The build-up play is different. So I think it's very hard to say like Rob Holding's, like affecting the play, because there's a lot of things that are probably not happening and you just can't see it. But then you put a better defender in, it looks a lot better in that sense.
It feels sometimes really harsh in some ways as well, right? Because when we're talking about Rob Holding in this manner, like, and I think we should probably contextualize it. He's our fourth choice centre back. So apart from Man City, you take any squad in the Premier League, and their fourth choice centre back is going to be remarkably different from their first or even first two choice centre backs. Like so that's worth bearing context. It's very hard to have a fourth choice centre half who's going to be able to be top of the Premier League quality. It's very difficult, and on that basis, you have to expect, I suppose, the team to compensate when stuff like this happens. You expect them to. But it's sort of getting to the point a little bit where you wonder, is it affecting, it might be an excuse, it shouldn't be an excuse, but is it affecting everyone's confidence to have a centre-back that they just feel is not someone that they can be confident around at a time where it feels like mentality is a little bit fragile? Miles, would you consider, I mean, would you consider a change next game? Let's say Saliba's still not fit. Does Rob Holding still start for you in the next game? I mean, what are our other options? Our other options are playing Ben White as centre half and then someone else at right back, maybe Tierney at right back, maybe Will Walters at right back. I don't know. Do you think there are any other options that might be worth exploring, or do you think the rest of the team just need to sort themselves out a little bit and say, all right, well, look, he's not William Saliba, and yeah, we have to adapt, and we just got to do it?
I think at this stage of the season, to change it up that dramatically, where you're going to have to change your right back and your centre back, I just can't. I can't. I mean, would I do it? No, because I think it's changing too much, and you're adding to that. You don't necessarily know if Zinchenko is going to be fit either. So you're kind of now basically bringing in a makeshift defense.
There is Kiwior as well, right?
Kiwior. I mean, when I know you messaged in the group chat earlier, I haven't really caught up on it properly, but one of the messages that stood out was, surely Rob Holding doesn't start the next game, something like that. So obviously you felt quite strongly after the game about his performance, Raj.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Because when you said that, my initial thought was, okay, that probably means that Kiwior comes in. But then if Saliba's not back for the Man City game, like what you're basically, it's an experiment, isn't it? It's just a unknown test, basically, or not a test, but it's just an unknown. And I think it's too much of a risk to bring in someone who's relatively inexperienced, 0 Premier League experience, and potentially put him up against, because I guess you're not going to change it up for Southampton unless you're looking at it for, this is what I want to do for the run-in, and City's the game after that. I can't see him making such a big call. So for me, no, assuming Saliba's still not fit, it's going to, I think it'll be Rob Holding. I mean, Southampton at home, if you can't kind of get away with Rob Holding at centre back, and you're playing Southampton at home, then there's a bigger question, a bigger worry, really. We should be able to get through that. I say get through that game. We should be able to beat them comfortably with him, but I guess we said the same about West Ham, pre-West Ham. So not really, mate. And I think, like the Tomiyasu injury, I know that obviously Saliba's really cost us, or is costing us at the moment. But the Tomiyasu one, I guess if you said to me, Tomiyasu's fit, bring Ben White in and at centre back instead of Holding and play Tomiyasu, like that's obviously a much more natural kind of change. And you feel it just feels less disruptive. So I wouldn't be unhappy with that, but I think I don't think we've got the options to do it at the moment. Unfortunately, I think we've just got too many injuries on that right hand side, centre back and right back, and it would just be too disruptive.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, my comments were probably emotional at the time. I mean, that being said, Aaron, do you think that Southampton, arguably, if we're going to try anything different, then this is probably last chance saloon on Friday? But would you? So, how do you feel about it?
I was thinking that as you were speaking, Miles, which was like, it depends, right? Which is, if Saliba really is out for a while, then you probably say, well, actually, try something different against Southampton. But honestly, I think if there was something, Arteta would have tried it by now. I think this is the best. He is the best option, right? And he's not great. But unfortunately, there's everything else is, in my opinion, far, far worse. We could talk about playing Partey at right back or something like that. I saw someone mention, which is awful, playing like that kid at right back, but that's madness, bringing in a complete unknown there. Then I don't know what you do. Maybe play Xhaka at centre back. I feel like every single option is bad, basically. But is Holding is the least worst.
Sorry to interrupt, but is that, I mean, it feels like we are therefore really confident that playing Kiwior, a left-footed centre back, is just not a decent idea at all. Are we saying that based on our knowledge of Kiwior, or are we saying that
I've never seen him play? I don't know.
Okay.
Probably. Maybe that's the only option that makes a little bit of sense. Like, could we play someone else there, or even put Gabriel there and then put Kiwior in his best position on the left? Arteta's the one watching Kiwior in training. I don't know, but that could work. Put it this way: if Holding gets injured, then like the question is, then what do you do? Then I think you play Kiwior at centre back, right? Because there's literally no other option. But I think, look, Holding is not good, but he's fourth choice centre back, and what can you expect? I think we've just got to roll with this. But I just keep going back to that Europa League game where we lost Tomiyasu, we lost Saliba, and I'm just like, oh, what awful luck.
Yeah, it is. It is. Just moving forward from the defensive situation, because at the end of the day, you could probably argue that, fine, we've conceded twice today, and one was a penalty, and that was fairly kind of random in the build-up. There was debate over whether it was a handball or not. Going forward, we probably should have done a lot better than we did today. There was, like you mentioned, Miles, there was just like that big chunk of period where we didn't really do anything after 2-2, although we had possession. The substitutions were interesting, but just to talk about individuals for a second again, was there anyone being there live? Was there anyone that disappointed you, or it doesn't have to be one person necessarily? Were you was there any one or two people that you felt were culpable slightly for our lack of tooth, if you like, in that period?
Look, I think I'm going to answer your question slightly different. On a more general basis, just in terms of performance, I was really disappointed with Thomas Partey today. Obviously, he made the mistake for the first goal, but something happened. Something was wrong today. I don't know what it was. Obviously, I don't know what it was, but something was just not right with him today. Even, I think, from the first minute, he gets pressed. I think it's by Declan Rice. I think it's literally 10, 20 seconds in. He gets pressed hard, and he loses the ball, or he gives the ball away. Something happens. Basically, he gets pressed, and he can't. I don't know. I think he tries to make a pass, and it just gets blocked. And that seemed to be a little bit of the theme for a lot of the game. I know he put the ball out wide for Saka for the first or for the second goal. I think he kind of starts the move a little bit. And yeah, he was okay, but at the same time, I felt like there were signs of. Do you remember like the Thomas Partey we've seen in previous seasons where he's had those random odd games where he just does some weird passes, like it's like a 10-yard sideways pass and he just passes it straight to the opposition. He seemed to be doing that a few times today. Maybe it's just because he did it a couple of times and I picked up on it and noticed it. And maybe it wasn't as bad as what I'm making out to be. But I just didn't feel like he was at his best today at all. And I think that really affected us. And like I said, the mistake to the goal, like I guess 9 times out of 10, maybe that's being a bit generous, but Thomas Partey tries that little kind of flick and he pulls it off. But I guess when you're, like I said, Declan Rice, obviously a player that we're looking at, that's what he's really good at, right? Like he that's probably one of the reasons why we're looking at him, and he would probably fit into our system. So, well, he basically done a Thomas Partey on Thomas Partey, where he's pressed him, gone really, really tight, and won the ball back. And the other thing that really annoyed me about that goal was he just stops. Thomas Partey stops, and I think, does he appeal for a handball? He doesn't even he's not playing to the whistle. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, they're 25 yards from goal. This is not like high up the pitch where we've got loads of time to recover. He's in, like we've lost the ball and he's in, and he's just stopped, and I think he's put his hand up, or he's appealing for whatever he's appealing for, a foul or a handball. And like, yeah, it's really, really disappointing that. Yeah, and obviously that leads to Gabriel making the mistake and them getting the penalty. So he's one that I'd probably single out. But again, it's hard to single out any of these players when they've done what they've done so far this season. And I think also in that last 30 minutes or whatever it was when we need to get a goal, like you guys, I don't know. Again, I haven't read the group chat properly. I feel like you guys were really disappointed in the Saka. As in Saka. I'm sorry, not Xhaka. Saka, but. I don't know. I didn't think he had the worst game, and obviously missed the penalty, but it felt like he wasn't. Yeah, okay, he wasn't at the level he's been for us this season. Like, it felt like a bit of an off game, but I don't know. I feel like every time he picked up the ball, he still looked really bubbly. He still looked like he was obviously trying to make something happen, and he still looked like he was he potentially could have been quite dangerous in the sense that, yeah, like I think that, yeah, he was always trying to make something happen, and it just didn't happen today. But I don't know. It felt like you guys were especially highlighting him as someone who was just not very good today. Maybe I misread it, but yeah.
Yeah, no. I could imagine why it perhaps did come across that way. I didn't actually think that he was that bad. It was more a case where when we were collectively not really doing much at all, right? But I think Martinelli and Jesus were probably our two best attacking players yet today. And Martinelli was brilliant last game as well. And Jesus was brilliant last game as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that partly I was feeling that a change needed to be made. And I felt that it shouldn't have been one of those two players to go off now. Gabriel Jesus, you could say, this is part of his injury rehab. He's not played more than 65 minutes since he's come back. So fine. Which is really disappointing though, because I think he was still so good today, and I really felt like we could have done with him being on the pitch. But it felt that with Saka, actually, with the penalty miss, that happens. And Salah missed last week, and Saka's been brilliant for us on penalties. To be honest, he's going to miss one sooner or later. Whatever, it is what it is. Yeah. I was actually just more disappointed with him after the penalty because it felt like he was trying to compensate for it a little bit. And there were a couple of times where I felt that he made a bad decision because he was almost really desperate to make up for it. And so it wasn't necessarily that I was angry at Saka. It was more that I thought, well, look, I think this is a game where if you're going to make a change, take him off. Take him off, put Trossard on instead of him. That's how I felt at the time.
Just on Saka, quite interesting because obviously, like you saw, it misses the penalty and he's obviously massively disappointed. But then I was watching him immediately after that, and I think it really affected him after it happened. And that's quite interesting because he's generally someone who you'd say has got a very, very strong mentality. Like I was basically expecting him to go, yeah, okay, fine. I missed the penalty, but I'm going to go win the game. I'm going to go win us the game. But I don't know. I just saw his head drop a little bit, and it felt like it was just playing. I mean, obviously, I was in the upper tier. I couldn't see it that close, but just from what I could see, it just seemed like it was bothering him. It was just with him, which is natural. It's going to happen. And maybe he realized how big, because obviously they went and scored literally within a couple of minutes after that. And I think at that point he probably realized, oh shit, missed a great opportunity to just finish the game here. So yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I mean, Aaron, any additional thoughts on that?
I don't think Saka had a very good game. I think it's the way you put it, Raj, which was, it's not that he was awful. It was more that if you're looking at that front three, he was probably the worst out of the front three, front four. And actually he was the one that stayed on the pitch for the longest, which didn't really make sense. I get your point, Miles, because I think the way Arteta probably looks at it is like, this kid is a bit of has a super strong mentality, has the ability to make something happen from nothing. It's probably why, and the fact that we don't really have anyone else who can do what he can do on the right is probably why he stayed on. But I think there are times where you just think like, look, Saka's not having a good game. I'm just going to get him off. And I think that's what Arteta needed to do. But then I think I was more disappointed with Partey because, like you said, Myers, he was great for 20 minutes and then he just stopped playing. And I don't know why or what happened. Maybe it was a yellow card. If he, and Arteta took him off, which says a lot because you don't take Thomas Partey off unless the game is won. Right.
But yeah, because you really, for as much as you're saying that you acknowledge that he was playing badly, you really didn't like the fact that he was subbed off.
Because it goes back to what I said earlier, right? There's like 3 or 4 players that who are absolutely crucial to this system working, and he's number one, right? Jorginho I'm not a big Jorginho fan, but he brings a bit more control, and that's probably what Arteta wanted because Partey was playing badly, but when you bring on that control, you lose a lot of that risk-taking, the ability to win you the game, the ability to do something special to really boss it. And
isn't that demonstrably untrue though? Jorginho played in the Villa game, and we came back,
fine,
and we won that.
Okay, fine, yeah, he produced a moment of magic there, right, and that was great and it's fantastic. But 9 times out of 10, when you're chasing a game, who do you want on the pitch? Do you want Thomas Partey, even though he's not playing well? It's probably the same conclusion that he came to with Saka, but the opposite decision, which is, I've got a player there that isn't playing well, but can probably do something to win me the game, or I can bring someone on who's more likely to give me a 7 out of 10. And that's what Jorginho did. He dropped a 7 out of 10. He was all right, but we needed more. And that's the problem with Thomas Partey, is that he's so important to the way we play that if he doesn't play well, not only do we suffer as a team, but actually the drop off in quality, even if Jorginho is playing well, is actually really big. And that's the frustration. And I don't think he played well, thinking about it now, at Anfield either, really. And that's a bit of a concern, because if we're even going to try and compete with City, we need Thomas Partey at his best.
Just on the subs as well, just one other thing. Two other things actually that were really odd. Three things actually that come to mind. One is the Ødegaard substitution. The timing of that, unless he picked up an injury, was so weird, because he came off, I think, on like 90 minutes, just as they were about to say it's 5 minutes added on. And I was baffled by that, because I thought if anyone's going to unlock their defense, or anyone's going to kind of make something happen, a little moment of magic, a little kind of ball inside, or a ball in, a through ball, that unlocks them, it was going to be him. And obviously he brought Vieira, so that's the first thing. I just didn't really understand that. And you're giving, I think Nketiah came on for him, right? And so you're giving Nketiah like 5 minutes. I'm not really sure what you're expecting there. The other weird one was, but Vieira was, I thought he was terrible, to be honest, when he came on. And like, really, I don't know, like, we're bringing him on hoping that he's going to make some massive impact on the game, but you're taking Ødegaard off. Like, that just I didn't really understand that. And I feel like, yeah, Vieira's not that guy yet. He's not that guy that's going to come in and, drag us to a win. He's just not that player. And the other one was, what the hell have we got Smith on the bench for if we're not going to bring him on? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It felt like he's the level of quality, and I know he's not an experienced player in terms of his age, but he's more experienced than a Reece Nelson or a Vieira. So like, it felt very kind of like, let's just chuck on a bunch of attackers and see what happens, or let's just change it up and see what happens, without any real kind of plan, basically.
It's like the Man United away, that what happened that day when we chucked a load of attackers on and just. I mean, I think I would have much rather have seen Smith Rowe on for Vieira, personally. I think what you're going to get with Smith Rowe. I know he's not played much. I know he's been injured, etc., and I guess he's not in form. But if you're not going to give him a go with 10 minutes or for 10 minutes in this type of game, then I'm not really sure what he's even on the bench for. Everyone else came on before him. Really weird. So yeah,
I fully agree. I don't think we discussed it last week. I don't think we discussed the subs last week in that much depth, but I think that's like the second game in a row that some of Arteta's substitutions were open to criticism, let's say. I think it's a part of his game that he just needs to work on, because I don't think he thinks them through properly. And it's easy to say with hindsight, right? There have been times where he has got it right. Like, he brought on Reece Nelson against Bournemouth, right? And he was brilliant, won us the game. But more often than not, I kind of feel like we're left scratching our heads a bit at some of these substitutions. Like, taking Jesus off, if that wasn't fitness related, seems like a bad one.
Oh, it's got to have been football, It just can't have been anything but that.
But surely, like, even if it's fitness related, like, surely this is the game you just push him an extra half an hour, an extra 20 minutes, and just say, like, we're gonna, I don't know, bring Trossard on, take Saka off, and play those three up front, or even bring Trossard on for Martinelli. It's hard because Trossard can play everywhere. So you're thinking, well, like, Trossard did a job at false nine previously, maybe I'll make that work and give that a go. And then the Vieira one is the real weird one, because, like you said, Miles, he's not really shown anything. There was that free kick that he had, and he put it in, and it was really tame. I think
he went down holding his face or something. Again, I couldn't.
Yeah, and he went down, and I was like, "Why are you?
It's wasting time."
Yeah. And there were a few bits where he gave the ball away, and he just looks so lightweight. I'm hoping he comes good, but he just looks so lightweight. You bring on Reece Nelson, again, I think he came on very late, and he didn't do much. But then the Eddie Nketiah for Ødegaard at, like you said, 90 minutes. If you're going to bring Eddie on, do it. like early. He should be one of the first players that come on in that sense. I
guess he's just come back from injury. It's just one of the factors, but I just didn't understand Ødegaard going off personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and yeah, I think that's to go back to my question earlier on. Like the big issue for me was when we're 2-2. Like I think when did West Ham score? I think it was let me check my phone. They scored in the 54th minute, right? So either way, let's just say it was 0-0 on the 54th minute, and then that performance that we dropped would have been like massively unacceptable in that sense. If we were chasing a title, the way we played in that last 30 odd minutes was just awful, and the subs I think contributed to that as well. So I think you look at that and you do have to blame the manager a bit for some of that and an element of that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that because you think that at this point in the season, he should know his squad inside out, and therefore know exactly who he needs to bring in these situations. And we've been through these situations a couple of times now, but really didn't feel like that. The Smith Rowe, just going back to the Smith Rowe comments that you guys were making, I don't know, you wouldn't have seen it, but before the game, they did it was quite a nice piece actually on Sky, where in 2019 they did a kind of interview with Saka and Smith Rowe and Nelson, basically, and I think Joe Willock was there at the time, and they interviewed them, and they basically tried to interview the same group now, but basically without Willock. But I think Eddie was in this interview, and Eddie wasn't in the previous one because he must have been on loan at Leeds, I think, at the time. And it was a really nice interview. But there was like a point where Smith Rowe basically referred to it was a very high spirited interview. It was very laughy, very jokey. But there was a point where they sort of asked Smith Rowe, "How's it been for you this season? Been a bit tough?" And he basically looked really sad, and he was basically just like, "Yeah, it's been the toughest season of my career," and looked quite, like it meant something. I know he's had injuries, but I imagine that the injuries plus. Maybe, I don't know whether it's he's fallen out of favor with the manager slightly, or he's struggling to do what the manager wants from him. But there's something that isn't quite connecting between him and Arteta right now, right? And it's kind of sad to see. I too was really confused at him not coming on. The Vieira thing I think is interesting because I wonder how much of that is maybe he was really an Arteta signing, and Arteta really feels like, no, I want to show that I've got this one right. I don't know if there's an element of that, because I agree with you that he hasn't done so much to really prove or warrant his, I guess, the faith that we place in him sometimes to change some of these games. At the same time, I'm a strong believer in the fact that when the first team isn't playing very well, you need to change it up and you have to give players opportunities. I get that. But this is the second or third time I've seen Vieira come in, and there's like that cross at the end, which I think one of you referred to, which was really it was really annoying because it was just this floated little kind of dolly of a cross, and I was like, mate, that's clearly not what this situation calls for. It's you've got one opportunity here, so that's disappointing. But okay, look. You said it at the beginning, Aaron. I think, maybe we should kind of circle back this point. We have been sort of blessed with this season where we've been almost flawless, because even the games that we've dropped points, there's ways in which you could point to it and just say, that we're unlucky because of this, we're unlucky because of that. Maybe the only other banter performance, I actually forgot about this one, but Everton away was another banter performance, I suppose. But aside from that Everton away, there's been the Man United away. We got screwed over by the ref. The refs even apologized afterwards. Brentford, a ref literally got sacked for that. Do you know what I mean? Like there have been real Man City. Yeah, Man City deserved to win that game and whatever. This was tough, but teams have this. Teams that win the title still have one or two of these games. It's just that we've got this like absolute behemoth that are chasing us, right? And is that ultimately what it comes down to? Is that what makes this so difficult? So, I mean, Aaron, from your perspective, how do you feel we're set up now? This obviously is not something that we expect. We didn't expect to drop points here, but the table effectively says that City are within touching distance. It feels like City have got, I think, it's 4 points, I think, is that gap. Is that right? And if City win their game in hand, obviously it would be equal. And if they draw or if they beat us when they play us, it means that they would pip us. We do have the opportunity to take another 3-point clearance when we play Southampton on Friday, because City don't play this weekend. But how do you feel overall, Aaron? And is this a huge hammer blow to our title prospects for you?
No, not really. It's obviously not ideal. I think it all comes down to, like you said, the City factor. I think if we were competing against a Liverpool or a Man United, and who are, let's say, normal football teams, this would be a draw where, like, a normal football team, like a top team, like, sometimes drops points, especially in away games, and we dropped some points today. The problem is City have set a level that is so hard for any normal football team to achieve, that you have to have literally everything go right for you, or City have to play like a normal football team, behave like a normal football team for you to compete. And that's the issue, that we're probably going to get a record points total, like something higher than we've ever gotten in the last 20 years or so. Like, I remember someone saying that we could probably get more points than the Invincibles got and come second, because we are having an absolutely phenomenal season. The problem is, City could literally win every single game 3-0 from now until the end of the season and finish on 96, 97 points. And if they do that, then you kind of just say, like, okay, fine, it is what it is. Look, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, right? If we continue to just pick up points, pick up wins, and this and Anfield are the reasons we don't win the league, that's okay with me. That's not failure. That's just us being a top football team that sometimes drops points, and a team that's up against a super team that's funded through very suspicious means. But if we then, like, let's say, don't beat Southampton, let's say we lose to Brighton, we drop points to Chelsea, and we finish maybe 8, 9, 10 points off, then I'll be annoyed, because we haven't just lost to a super team, we haven't finished good enough. So let's see where this is a start of, like, a trend, and that's a concern. But if we carry on and we just do our bit and we still don't win it, then there's no shame in that, I don't think.
Might you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think Aaron has put it really well in terms of what City are and the level that they operate at every season under Pep. And it's very, very hard for any team, not just the Arsenal team this season, the previous Liverpool teams of the last few years. It's been almost impossible. Well, it's obviously not been almost impossible, but it's been very, very difficult for anyone to get near them. So I completely agree, man. I completely agree. I think it's going to be so, like, despite saying all of that, and I agree with it, it is still going to be extremely disappointing if we don't win the league now. I've never once said that I think we'll win it, or should I say, I've never really thought, like, truly believed that we were going to go on and win the league. But when you're top the entire season, pretty much, I think we have been top the entire season. And then if we end up not winning it with 3, 4, 5 games to go, whatever, like, that's when City might overtake us. That's going to be it's going to be like heartbreaking more than anything, because it's not even that I allowed myself to believe that it could happen. It's just more the fact that, yeah, like Aaron has said, we've just done so well. And we've done so many good things this season, so many great games, so many great performances, players playing at 8, 9, 10 out of 10 levels the entire season, and still might just not be enough. But it is what it is, man. Like, that's who we're up against. And yeah, I guess the fantastic thing is, despite the result today, it's still in our hands, and we have a difficult run. But like, I don't think any of the team, obviously City away is the one that is the key game, but of all the other games that we have, of course, like St James's Park is going to be difficult, Brighton's going to be difficult, but like, that's just a run in, isn't it? That's just like, if you're going to win the league, we're going to have to probably win all of those games. If not, maybe we'll be able to drop points in one more game or something, depending on what City do. So, yeah, like I said, the good thing is it's still in our hands, and it's just I think it's gonna come down to, no, I don't want to say it's gonna come down to the game at Etihad next week, but imagine we go there and win. Yeah, and I know that's like dreamland stuff, but imagine we go there and win, which this team are capable of doing, because it's 90 minutes at the end of the day. As good as City are, and as even though they've beaten us twice this season and all the rest of it, I don't think there's many Arsenal fans that think we will go there and win, but we're definitely capable of doing it. So, you're just gonna have to see what happens, man. We've got to beat Southampton first. That's it. Just got to beat Southampton, and then let's see what condition we're in when we go to Etihad. See if Saliba's back, which would be a massive, massive boost. Zinchenko's back, hopefully. And yeah, mate, that could be one of those nights where title defining.
I think you both put it pretty well. But I will go back to you mentioned that you've never said that you think that we're going to win the league. You did do a WhatsApp poll in our group. Was it after the Liverpool game with the question, "Will we win the league?"
Oh, did I? I can't even remember now, mate.
And your answer was yes.
Yeah, probably straight after the game. But you know what I mean, right? Like I've never allowed myself to really truly believe like that it's going to happen, because yeah, everyone's been saying it, right? The City, once they get going, it's just a machine, man. Like it's mental. And yeah, I mean, if we win the league this season, it will be ridiculous, to be honest.
Of course, yeah,
it will be mental. So
I think, to go one step further, I think the only way we win the league is if City throw it away, in the sense that they are very capable. You look at their fixtures, right? They are very capable of winning every single game, right? And the question is, where are they not going to win? Like, what are they going to do to stop it? I think they're favourites. I think they have been favourites for a while, because they've got a guy who's scoring like 15 goals every game. It's ridiculous, right? Like they're an insane team. They take him off, they bring on like Alvarez, who's one of the best players of the World Cup, and they've got De Bruyne. It's ridiculous. They've got £100 million Jack Grealish on the left. It's insane, right? But they are capable of doing dumb things too, like any team is, right? So we just need to hope that they do something dumb. And if they do, that is when I will be really gutted if we don't capitalize. Because then I'd say like they gave us a way in. They gave us something in, and we couldn't take it. Be that letting us win at the Etihad, or even just going somewhere random and just losing completely out of the blue. It's the same thing, right? They dropped 3 points. But yeah, I think the fear that every Arsenal fan has is they could literally go and win every single game between now and May, and it'll be done.
But if it was a level playing field, right, when we were both just in one competition, I think that you would always bet, given everything that you've just said about City's squad, that City's, like you say, City's throw away. But surely those fixtures, we go back to it, right? They've still got a lot of fixtures. They've still got FA Cup games, they've still got Champions League games, and they've still got the Brighton away fixture that hasn't been scheduled. They've got stuff. I will agree, it's still scary. There's still a scary prospect, but I mean, although I'm more pessimistic after today's game, I still think City are going to drop points. I think it'd just be inhuman for them not to. Like, there are some teams that they're going to be playing, even though they look like okay fixtures, but there's some of these teams that are going to be playing for their lives, because they're fighting for stuff, and so I do think they will drop points. After today's result, I worry about some of our bankable games.
I think that depends on Saliba. If Saliba's back, then we'll probably be okay in those games.
Yeah.
But if he's not, then yeah, we've got a big problem there too.
You can say something, Mice? I mean, I was just going to say, so after the game today, like literally on the final whistle, obviously, the minutes are kind of ticking on, and your hopes like diminishing, and final whistle goes, and there were a couple of fans actually quite surprised, to be honest, but obviously it's just reaction at the time and emotions are high, but a lot of fans that were like, I heard them like just walking out and stuff saying yeah, that's it. It's done. Like no chance now. We're going to win the league. They basically wrote us off after getting a point. I say getting a point after dropping 2 points today. And that's the overreaction that we just don't need. Like that is there's still so many I say so many games. There's still a lot of games to play. And like you said, Raj, I can see City dropping points at least one game, because even when you look at their record over like the last five seasons or so, they haven't like the last 8 games of the season, 8, 9, 10 games, they've not been perfect. They've dropped points every season. So there's hope there from that perspective. And I think, mate, honestly, I think next week, Wednesday night, Etihad, like, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? If we go there and don't lose, like, let's assume we beat Southampton. Okay, I shouldn't assume it, but okay, we beat Southampton. So I think that's 7. That'll put us 7 clear. They'll have 2 games in hand and 5 games to go for us, I think. Oh no, 6 games to go for us. And then we go to City. If we don't lose, that keeps it a 7-point gap with 5 games to go. Even if they've got 2 games in hand, they've got to win those 2 games to close it down to a point, assuming my maths is correct. And then they've got to still go, then they're relying on us or waiting for us to drop points in another game. So I don't know, man. I just think there's still probably a couple more twists. I'm not saying we're necessarily going to win it, but it's not a foregone conclusion that City are now going to just, go and win every game 3-0 and it's done. So
yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, even if we lose, let's say we beat Southampton, if we lose, they're 4 points behind. They'll be 4 points behind with 2 games in hand, right?
Yeah,
and that's not. It's not the worst. Like, it's obviously in their favor. They've got it's in their hands, obviously. But like you said, they've still got to go. And then maybe actually that might suit us because the pressure will be on them for a change, because they effectively be indirectly top in that sense. And it's for them to go and get those points. And yeah, I think we've just got to, it's absolutely, like, I had many annoyances after this game, but I didn't for once think this title race was done, because it wasn't.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm just worried about the fact that this has happened twice and what that will mean to the players. And now, until the Liverpool game this season, I've always felt that if we were going to take the lead in games, all those all the nerves I had were because of past seasons. And now I think that I'll have nerves based on fairly good reason, for the last 2 games to be sort of throwing this away. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about, to be honest. Like, I still think, I don't think the league's over at all. I feel like we just need to get a couple of wins under our belt. And the annoying thing is, okay, touch wood, we beat Southampton. We obviously have to beat Southampton, but it would have been really nice to play another more bankable team after Southampton, so we can just get a little bit of momentum. But then, who knows, man? Like,
Chelsea are as bankable as they come these days, right?
Yeah. I guess. Okay, look, why don't we give predictions for the Southampton game? Aaron, I'll go to you first.
I think we'll win 2-0.
Okay. Nice.
Straightforward.
Well, 2-0 is never straightforward, is it, mate? But
no, I mean your prediction was very just a score. That's it. I'm tempted to predict a loss just because I predicted. I think we all predicted wins. No, right. Because we all predicted wins today, and that didn't happen. So
if we lose to Southampton, then it will be done. Like,
mate, you can't. Even if we drop points to Southampton,
exactly.
It's ridiculous. Like, we don't deserve to win it, but you can't afford to do that. Oh, they're awful, aren't they? They are awful.
You can't ask for a better game to get. Yeah,
exactly. And before, I know City are not playing, but kick the weekend off, get the win under the belt. Yeah, I'm going for a win. I'm just thinking of what scoreline, to be honest. I'll go. God, we're conceding goals every game, so I'm tempted to say 3-1 again, which is what I predicted for today. But yeah, I'm going to go 3-1. But yeah, I just made a win. 3 points. I don't really care, to be honest. 3 points and no injuries would be lovely. That's all we need.
Yeah. I honestly, I was actually going to go 4-5-0. I'm gonna I think it's going to be one of those games where if we score early, I think we'll win 5-1. Like, I think we'll absolutely batter them, because I think the guys will kind of be really wanting to just get the spirits up. I think the fans will help. If we don't score early, I'm worried the fans will be a little bit, anxious, and then that'll rub off, and then, there's that. But it's quite nice. It's a Friday night. The fans will be in good spirits, like, literally have a lot of spirits in them. Like, we'll just be really, really going for it. So maybe that will help. But I'm therefore, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go 5-1.
Nice.
Fingers crossed. That'll be nice. Yeah.
I mean, Russ is making a very good point, and he's made some good comments today. Russ in the comments saying we scored early twice today and still couldn't push on. Very frustrating. I mean, that's true. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to say, Russ. I think my feeling is that if that happens again, if we do it again, and if we go score a couple of goals early again and we throw it away, I can't bring myself to even think about that, let alone at home to Southampton. So
we didn't beat him. We didn't beat him earlier in the season, did we?
We didn't beat him.
Which looks like a fucking ridiculous number. A couple of points dropped now, but yeah, in hindsight.
I know. All right. Okay, boys. Listen. I feel better already. I felt it did actually ruin my Sunday after I had such a beautiful weekend, actually, and this did ruin it, this result. But this conversation made me feel a little bit better. Really looking forward to meeting up with you guys on Friday night and hopefully having some drinks after a win. But yeah. And
nice one.
Nice one. So cheers, boys. Thank you, everyone in the comments. Russ, thank you very much. Really appreciate the comments. Thanks, Jana, as well. And great. And talk to you guys on I don't know when we record next, but at some point over the next weekend, hopefully reflecting on a win. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.